Great, a full house.
Compliment. Great.
Okay.
Okay, Wendy, you want to kick us off?
Yes. I'm so excited to welcome everyone to the Williamstown Net Zero Task Force kickoff meeting. It's wonderful to see so many familiar and a few new faces in the room. And I'm just going to speak very briefly about this milestone. And if Emily can go to the next slide. So in 2001, two people in this virtual space, Hank Art and Nancy Nyland, went to the Williamstown Board of Selectmen, or the Williamstown Select Board, which we used to call them selectmen back then, I think. And it was in the wake of the United States failing to sign on to the Kyoto Protocol. It was a very concerning time for people who were concerned about the climate. And they made a request that Williamstown join a group called Cities for Climate Protection and come up with its own climate action plan and act at the local level. Think globally, act locally. And that came to fruition. And that was how the Williamstown Cool Committee CO2 lowering started. And I just want to take a moment of reflection. This collage is from one of our first big community outreach events. It was called Step It Up 2007, 15 years ago. It was Bill McKibben's first National Day of Climate Action, a precursor to him starting 350.org. And you can see we had speakers, including Bill Muma, who may be in this room. We had young people, we had elected officials, we had educational activities, we had faith leaders, and we had a big graph coming down from the spire of First Congregational Church showing the spike in carbon emissions. And the call to action on that day was to reduce emissions 80% by 2050. And it was a very hopeful act in a dark time. And unfortunately, emissions have increased 8%. So I think we continue to feel that need to push for hopeful actions in the face of sometimes what feels like very dark times. And so I'm so thrilled that we're beginning this process and that you're all part of it. And I'd like to introduce Emily Lang, who is a planner from Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, who's going to be facilitating the meeting today, and hand it over to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. And hi, everyone. As Wendy mentioned, I'm Emily Lang. I'm an energy and environmental planner at the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. I'm really happy to be here with you all today. Really excited you all were able to join. Just to give you the agenda for today's meeting, we're going to give you some background on this project, so progress that the town has already made to reduce its emissions, and then we're going to review some project specifics and the timeline. Actually, first we're going to go around before we go over the timeline and have everyone introduce themselves. And share a little bit about their background, and then we're going to finish up with a discussion of next steps. And if anyone has any questions, I think we'll leave those to the end, just considering how many participants we have and what limited time we have. And so I'll be happy to stick around after the meeting and answer any questions. So now I'm going to pass it to Nancy Nyland to talk a little bit about the progress that the town has already made to reduce its emissions, as well as some upcoming initiatives. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Emily. And I also just wanted to say, Wendy didn't introduce herself, but Wendy Panner is the chair of our local climate action committee, the Cool Committee.
Oops, thank you, Nancy. Sorry about that.
So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew who Wendy was. I'm Nancy Nyland, and I've been, as Wendy said, part of the Climate Action Committee since its inception, along with Hank. And so at town meeting in June, we passed this net zero resolution. It is a much longer resolution. I think you had a copy in your packets, and we encourage you to read through it all. But the basic message was that we resolve to pursue a net zero greenhouse gas emissions goal and achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and then develop and begin implementing a comprehensive climate action plan by 2023. And that's really what's brought all of us together. And so I guess as we move to look at what we're going to be focusing on, it's going to be supporting clean, efficient, affordable, renewable technologies and approaches. We're going to be looking at our buildings, our vehicles, our waste. We're going to be looking at all municipal decisions and planning and procurement. We're going to be preparing for the impacts of climate change because, alas, they are already upon us. And we're going to be looking to be sure that our climate actions recognize the needs of vulnerable members of our community and are inclusive and equitable as we go. So the next slide really just is mainly to show you that we're not starting from zero. We've made a lot of progress. We've had a lot of activities over the past 20 years. And so you can, scan through this and see if these look familiar. I guess at town meeting, when we presented this, we talked about, why now and why us, and now why you. And I guess I would just have to say that, once again, the time has never been so right. So in recognition of climate change as a serious threat, Massachusetts, in fact, set a goal in the spring to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And we in Williamstown, as we know, change happens at the local level, person by person, business by business, institution by institution, and household by household. And so this is really our time to chart our own course and then to work really with as many partners as we can. And we now are coming to you as a group of people to help us really come up with the best possible plan. We're looking to your ideas, your creativity, and your heads, and also your hearts, because we tackle this important and timely goal, it's going to be really important that we put our all into it. It's for our community, for our kids, for Andrew's kids, and for their kids. So I'm excited to be part of this. I'm just so excited to be part of kicking this off with you, and turn it back to Emily.
Great, thank you. So some project specifics. So we're in this process is creating a scope of work for what will be a future community-wide net zero action plan. And we're going to do this through brainstorming sessions with the net zero task force that we've assembled here, with the community, through conversations with town departments. I know we have some representation here, which is great. And through looking at precedents from other communities across Massachusetts, when possible, of a similar size and rural character. And so what you see here is a list of the categories we plan to include in this scope of work. And this list can also be found in the document that has been shared with all of you. I'm happy to share that document again if it got lost. And so we hope that the conversation with the Net Zero Task Force and the community will help us establish plan principles and goals, as well as some high-level sector-based strategies that can be further explored in a future net zero action plan. So the purpose of convening you all and establishing a net zero task force is to get ideas and understand your priorities for Williamstown's transition to net zero. And Nancy did a great job describing this. And so you all represent a diverse group of stakeholders, and we want to hear from you, not so much as Williamstown's residents, some of you are, some of you probably aren't, but from the perspective of the sectors you represent, the committees or boards that you're on, or maybe just your interests as they pertain to net zero. So we're going to go around now and do some introductions. I will just call on people by the order I see them in my screen. And when I call on you, if you could please take 2 minutes to share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. If you could use these bullet points as a guide, that would be great. So we're interested in hearing your areas of expertise and or interests as they pertain to net zero / climate change, and your visions or priorities for how Williamsburg should transition to net zero emissions. And since there are a lot of people in this meeting, which is really wonderful, we're going to try and really keep it to 2 minutes per person. So Wendy will be our timekeeper.
Yes, I am a stern taskmaster. I'm setting a timer on my phone for everyone, so you will really have 2 minutes, and thank you.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, as long as everyone has a good idea of what these talking points are, so we can just be in gallery mode and all see each other. Okay. So Stephanie, would you like to go first?
No, but I will. Well, I am on a number of committees in Williamstown, the Cool Committee and the Planning Board. And on the Planning Board, I am currently co-chairing an effort that we're calling our comprehensive plan. And we have identified sustainability and net zero as a key component of that plan. So one of the things that I really would like to do is leverage some of the work that we're doing here to inform that plan. So I think the more different directions that we can come back to this critical goal, the more likely we are going to be successful. In terms of vision or priorities, I didn't prepare to talk about that, but I'm like, oh my goodness, we have so many things that we need to do. But I do know that one of the more challenging issues is going to be, how do we heat our homes and our businesses? So trying to find a way to get home heating and building heating systems off of fossil fuels, I think, will be a critical challenge and something that will determine whether we succeed or fail at net zero. I'm sure that was less than 2 minutes. Wendy, how did I do?
Great.
Great job. Thank you. Henry, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Hank Art. Along with Nancy, we're there at the conception of the Cool Committee long ago. Retired professor of environmental studies and biology from Williams College, where I taught for 50 years, on the Conservation Commission for the last 25 years at least, and have had a long-term interest in the regional environment, also the board chair, chair of the Mohawk Trail Woodlands Partnership that's trying to have a new initiative for sustainable management of our region's forests. I share Stephanie's comment that that's going to be the toughest nut to crack in terms of moving from fossil fuel heating of homes to renewable sources. And I would like to see us build on our successes that we've had in the past in terms of solarization projects, both at the individual domestic as well as the town level, and try to continue that progress and even bring it forward. See more charging stations for electric vehicles around town, because that's going to be another pinch point as we go forward over the next 15 years. If we are going to have a move away from fossil fuel for transportation. So let me stop there.
Great, thank you. Charlie, could you go next, please?
Sure. I'll certainly take less than 2 minutes. I'm the interim town manager. My contract is to have me here until the end of April, and I certainly, support these efforts, and I'll do everything that I can to help lead the town's officials toward supporting this effort. So I certainly appreciate all you're doing, and I assure you, you'll have my full support.
Thank you. And Andrew.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm the Community Development Director and Town Planner for Williamstown. And much like Stephanie, I'm really looking at this as a way to complement our work on the comprehensive plan, because so much regarding our level of emissions and environmental sustainability is baked into our overall land use pattern. And we're really going to have to think really hard about how that is going to change over time in a way that's going to be sustainable. So that's what I'm excited about with this project.
Awesome, thanks. Lauren Stevens.
Okay, so I was an English major, so I'm not an expert in anything. So, however, I am on the Conservation Commission, and I have been involved for a long time with the Hoosick River Watershed Association. And if I could take part of my 2 minutes just to mention that Bill Mumaw, whom you will meet shortly, and Elizabeth Colbert and Wendy, whom you already met, are going to be on a panel this Saturday morning called Glasgow on the Hoosick to talk about what happened at the COP26 and how it affects us. I'd like to see us tackle the issue before us in terms of harking back to some things that we did along the way and in the past in terms of small group meetings, seminars, workshops. We did one, I remember, on clotheslines, actually installed clotheslines at some people's houses, planting trees, the things that individuals can do at their homes to try to conserve carbon. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, would you like to go next?
Me? Okay. I'm Andy. I'm a resident of Williamstown. 10 months ago, I was no more than a chicken farmer. Then I wrote an essay. Now I'm a member of the Dyer Committee. I serve on the DOJ SPCP planning group, and I am the chair of the unofficial and lead organizer of the National Night Out, which we will be doing again this year. I'm actually here because I was asked to be. I'm glad to be here. I don't really have any great skill, but I care, and I care a whole lot. And I would very much like for my grandkids to be left in a place that's better that was handed to us. So I'm glad to be here and learn what I can learn.
Great, thank you. Jeffrey?
Hi, my name is Jeff Johnson, Williamstown Select Board. I professionally work for the Department of Developmental Services, working with people with disabilities. Some of the strengths and expertises I hope to bring are, I was fortunate enough to work at the first recycling center in Middlebury College. My great uncle is Gene Shaggy, who writes the Eagles, Berkshire Woods and Waters Outdoors column. I'm in these rivers, I'm in these climates. To sit around and watch the news and watch the way that things have completely accelerated over the last year related to the climate environment are scary. I look at this as one of the most important things. If we don't have air, we can't live. I'm 100% on board with some of the things Henry said related to trying to work to ensure that we have the power state grid in place so we can move and try to move towards more of the charging stations and electronics instead of the fossil fuels. So, and I'm here to listen and learn and to provide anything I can from the state. I'm hoping that with the state now being on board with the same goal, that there's some things and avenues that come through with funding and things like that we can utilize. But I'm here just to help. And like Andy said, I want to have my great grandkids enjoy the same town I grew to love. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And Clark, can you go next, please?
Caught me off guard there. Hi, I'm Clark. I have worked as an energy consultant. In fact, one of the projects we did that kind of made me sit up and realize there's more ramifications, or not all good intentions end up with good consequences. So one of our things was to reduce the energy consumption of these huge hospitals that are in the desert, around Phoenix. And it just makes you realize, yeah, you can save a lot of energy there, but it just allows more people to live in an environment that maybe people shouldn't live in if they want to stay cool year round. Anyway, there's two levels that I want to see happen out of this plan. One is the very local level that you guys were talking about. And in fact, an example I have of that is getting school children involved in some of the projects that can involve monitoring. Like I know school buses in the morning, people get in, the drivers get in, they turn on the school buses, and the school buses can idle there for half an hour or more. So it'd be interesting to get students involved in a project to find out how much could be saved or how much could be reduced just by taking little things like that. And then Williamstown is pretty good community for this awareness. So we should also spend time coming up with a plan to convince other communities that may not be so on board, because us solving the climate crisis relies on everybody else wanting to solve it too. All right, fine, Wendy. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Tanya, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Emily. My name is Tanya Subodniak, and I'm the director of the Zilka Center at Williams College, basically the campus sustainability office. Also working with the COOL committee and the comprehensive planning steering committee. I'm really look forward to this effort. I'm particularly interested in reducing greenhouse gas emissions from buildings. And so what was already raised, right, transitioning from fossil fuel-based heating and cooling and hot water to renewables and transportation. Hoping to be able to contribute on those fronts. I'm also very interested in thinking about how we can make that transition itself sustainable, both on with regard to affordability and equity and inclusion, but also once we've achieved it, how do we keep it at that level, right? It's a bit like running a marathon at sprint speeds and sustaining that in the long run. So thanks. I hope I'm within my time limit.
Thank you. Brian, can you go next, please?
Yep, I'm Brian O'Grady. I'm the Council on Aging Director in Williamstown. So we work mostly with seniors and their families to provide services and whatever is necessary. And I bet I know a bunch of the folks who you might identify as being vulnerable. So my experience in this arena is mostly personal observation. I've noted, for instance, that we've gone from snow to no snow in the winter, and as far as fossil fuels, renewable fuels, I've lived in an electric house for 30 years, so I'm on board with whatever you want, and I'm happy to help out. Thanks.
Thank you. Bruce, can you go next?
Hi. If you had told me 20 years ago that I would live in an all-electric house, I would have said you were crazy. And I installed 2 heat pumps in 2012 in my house in Stanford, and now I live in an all-electric house that's not off-grid anymore. Decarbonization pretty much occupies 100% of my professional work right now. 25 years with Conservation Services Group as technical director for 15 years of that time, running energy efficiency programs, learning about energy efficient retrofits of residential buildings and high efficiency new construction. Most of what I've been doing as an independent consultant for the last 6 years has related to cold climate air source heat pumps, advising state agencies and utility companies on research projects, codes and standards development, and a little bit of design work on the side. And I try to find opportunities to mentor others along the way. So I hope I can contribute. I agree that decarbonizing buildings is a big deal. 20 years ago, I would have said, well, probably makes more sense to burn gas or oil and offset that. And I've totally changed my perspective on that over the last 10 or 15 years. Heat pumps, most of my focus is on air source heat pumps, but ground source are also an important part of the solution. I've been working a lot with NYSERDA and their clean heat program, which is pretty aggressively going after that. And very, very encouraging news is that they're almost there, but Mass Save's incentive program for installing heat pumps has jumped dramatically for people who do whole house installations that can offset all of their heat, $10,000 a home, and they're almost at the point of getting approval to do that for natural gas heated homes, as well as, I should say, utility gas heated homes, as well as propane and oil, which they've been kind of limited to in the past. So that's huge news. And these systems are not cheap. You know, doing a whole house project in many cases is going to cost $20,000 to $40,000, and probably more in some homes in Williamstown. So it's a tough nut to crack, and weatherization, good energy efficiency retrofits are an important part of that as well.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm going to cut you off, but that was really important information. Thank you.
Thanks. Susan, you go next.
Hello, I'm Susan Briggs. I'm the Executive Director of the Williamstown Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here really excited to be able to help our local small businesses get accessible, low-cost, convenient options for renewable energy, renewable heat sources, renewable everything for their businesses. But I will emphasize that the affordability and accessibility is going to be extremely important. So I look forward to hearing how we can achieve all of these goals.
Great, thank you. Anne, should I go next?
Anne O'Connor, former member of the Select Board, freelance editor and teacher of yoga and nature education for kids. So not an expert. I sort of jumped on Andrew Groff's comment about land use. I think it was Andrew, land use. I have a very specific focus that I want to bring to this group on landscaping practices, not only at a municipal level, but really at a low individual level. So as a member and, well, co-founder of Bee Friendly Williamstown, I'm interested in seeing people transition lawns to something other than grass, hopefully helpful to pollinators. But in the past few years, I've given a lot of thought and focus to what would in effect translate to carbon reduction through less lawn mowing, less leaf blowing, or if it must be, then transitioning those types of things to electric power. But I also agree with Lauren and Clark on the small actions piece, and particularly with respect to youth. Youth don't need education about this, I find. They actually already know it, but they need to be making small actions themselves to give themselves a feeling of empowerment and hope. So I'm eager to see those youth tie-ins as well. And I think I'll be able to defer to Susan Abrams on waste management. And I have no solutions on waste management, but it's another interest. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Jason, can you go next?
Jason Moran, I'm Senior Project Manager with Williams College, and I'm currently spearheading the creation of our Energy and Carbon Master Plan. I work closely with Rita, who's on the call, and Tanya as well. We have set goals outlined in our climate action plan of 80% reduction of emissions, I believe, by 2035. So I've recently have hired multiple different teams, and we are currently exploring the options for the Williams College campus to meet those goals. So with that, I'm here to probably keep the committee and the group up to date on where we stand at the college level.
Thank you. Susan Abrams.
Hi, I come to this from a biomedical engineering background, which I've never really used in Williamstown. And I really got kind of radicalized about energy use with Mike Toulouse, who many of you know, 10 or so years ago. Very interested in buildings, as like other people have said. I live in one of those houses, one of those gas heated houses that's going to be really, really hard to deal with. So I'm been trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what the options are for a hydronic house that can't have solar panels. So, and then I'm also, because of my biomedical background, very interested in health impacts, not only related to like the air pollution and things associated with burning things, but also the chemicals, and as Anne mentioned, the waste reduction, plastics, and the fact that plastics manufacturing is right now poised to become one of the highest greenhouse gas production industries because they use the byproducts of natural gas fracking. And so it's really, really important to reduce our use of plastics, especially single-use plastics. So that's been something that's been very much on my radar after taking a class with Judith Enck at Beyond Plastics at Bennington College. Yeah, I guess that's about it.
Thank you.
I should mention, I also ran the Solarize program in 2019. I was the solar coach, and where we got 45 new residential solar systems, and tried to bring in home batteries. That's another thing that I'm trying to pay attention to is home energy storage, which we really kind of bumped into a wall on that, and we're still trying to resolve that for 15 people or so in the community that really wanted battery storage for their homes.
Great, thank you. Town of Williamstown.
Hi, everybody. My name is not the Town of Williamstown. A lot of you will recognize me. My name's Chris Lemoyne, and I'm your Public Works Director. And I will be here to assist you in any way, particularly focusing on getting our buildings off of fossil fuels and also to electrify our vehicle fleet. So it's a pleasure to meet you all, and thank you.
Thank you. Rita, can you go next?
Sure, thanks, Emily. So I'm Rita Coppola, Interim Assistant Vice President for Capital Planning and Operations, and I work with very closely with Tanya and Jason for sustainability and ways to get the college campus off of fossil fuels. My interest on this committee is, well, I guess it's multifolded. It's, I echo Sue Briggs's comment about making sure that that anybody who wants it has access to reliable and affordable energy. But I'm also interested in, complete streets, if you will, that program Complete Streets, in the sense of, I realize that we're not building a lot of new streets, but that maybe we take a look at, or when we do have to, rebuild streets, that we can maybe add some green infrastructure and some paths for walking and biking. I think there's a real void there in a lot of areas in Williamstown. The bike path, the one that was just completed or is almost completed, has been fantastic. But that's something that you actually have to, make a point to go to. And I'm talking about something that you can just, head out of your house without using your car. And then I'd like to put the challenge out there that any new construction is net zero. Maybe I'm echoing Chris's recent comment, and I know that's a challenge. I've put the challenge to the college as well. Hasn't gone too well just yet, but we're trying. So thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Bill, could you go next?
Sure. My apologies for being a few minutes late. We have an electrician here replacing all of our smoke detectors they now come with eternal batteries in them. So learn about that. It's a great thing to have. I'm Bill Mumont. I taught at Williams for half my career, about 25 years, and then spent a time in Washington, and then was at Tufts University. And with Hank Art, I was involved in starting the environmental studies program way back in the late 1960s. I've worked on climate for the last, well, since 1988, very heavily and mostly on the solutions. And first on the technologies, and took some of that information, and with my wife Margot, we built this zero net energy home, which we're now in our 15th year of, and it's still working really well. Ground source heat pump, solar panels. We generate more electricity than we use over a year. Obviously right now the panels are covered with ice and snow and they're not producing much, but that will all be made up in July when we're kicking out solar electrons to the grid. I also have an electric vehicle, as does Hank, and a number of other people on here as well. I don't know why anybody drives anything else, and I think we could do more demonstration things of what can be done. The other suggestion I have is, having gotten into the high performance building world starting almost 20 years ago, Margot and I have gotten to know many of the engineers and the contractors in this region, all the way from Boston, southern New Hampshire, and so forth, who are actually designing and building these buildings and doing retrofits, including 100% zero net energy retrofits. And so I'd like to make the offer of connecting us with those people who are actually doing it, and actually, you know, technologically doing it, and are up on some of the latest improvements in various things like heat pumps and so forth. But I'm very excited about this committee being formed, and the commitment from Regional Planning Commission, on which I once served as the Williamstown representative many years ago, and to be working with both people I've known in the past, as well as meeting newer people who are new to me in Williamstown. So thank you all for your commitment and engagement.
Thank you. That's a great idea, and we'll follow up with you after about that. I think that would be really important. I want to invite everyone else, if there's anyone like from your networks that you think we should be talking to, that you think should maybe be a part of this task force, please let us know. And then we'll just finish things off with Andrew. Andrew Gunlow.
I apologize, I'm on a job site and balancing my cell phone, so I don't have a video option really to speak of, but Andrew Gunlow, former resident of Williamstown for 30 years, and now live next door in Hancock, but still business owner in Williamstown for, you know, going on 13 years in renewable energy. My business is New England Solar and Green Solutions. So the implementation of renewables into homes and small businesses has always been, you know, my task over the last 13 years since I've been doing it. So hopefully bring some knowledge in that regard. And I'm also fascinated personally with the implementation of renewable energy sources to the local level, home automation, you know, from, you know, smart homes, and how that assists with saving and reducing power consumption. So, you know, just happy to be a part of on you know, this team, and look forward to providing any information I can.
Great. Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Things jumped around on my screen a little bit, but I think I got everyone. Or if Wendy or Nancy, if either of you like to share. No? Okay. Great. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think it's really clear we've got a lot of interesting, this group has a lot of interesting ideas to contribute. I'm really excited that you've all agreed to participate in this process. And so we're going to be using what you've said today, and you know, what you'll continue to say in future meetings, to establish the priorities and goals and a vision statement that are going to guide this process and hopefully guide future net zero, the full action plan. And so I'm going to now share my screen again, just go over the timeline that we've proposed. And this is also in that document that that's been shared with you all. But I thought we could just talk about it in a little bit more detail right now. So today, task force meeting 1, here we are. So after this meeting, we're going to be finalizing a community survey, and we're going to share that with you all and ask you to be a task group to pilot the survey and give us your feedback if you'd like to. And then that's going to be released to the public in early February. And we're going to ask you at that time to share a link out to all of your Williamstown networks and connections throughout the month. We're going to be holding a community meeting sometime in early March. And we'll be giving a short presentation on the project, ask the community to share their vision and priorities for net zero Williamstown, and just generally try to generate some interest in the project. And then after that meeting, we will convene the task force for a second time, and we'll review community feedback, finalize a vision statement. And then in the second half of that meeting, we're going to break into smaller groups for sector-based discussions and a strategizing session. I was thinking we could break into groups on transportation, energy, supply, and buildings. And I'm wondering now after this conversation if we should add waste to that. But anyway, so we'll be forming those little, you can call them subgroups, subcommittees. And so everything that you've said today will help us break up those groups. But if you have a strong preference, please let us know. And then so after that, between March and September, we're going to be drafting the scope of work, and we will share it with you all for feedback prior to a third task force meeting, which will take place in September or potentially earlier, to collect edits and to answer questions, things like that. And then our final meeting will take place a month or two later, where we're going to review the final report and a discussion of future opportunities for engagement and for a future full net zero action plan. And so you can expect to hear updates from me, from the team between meetings. We'll be sharing materials along the way and might be asking for your feedback. So look out for that. And then next steps, as I just mentioned, I will be sending out the community survey to the group, asking for feedback. And then after the community meeting takes place, we'll be scheduling our next task force meeting. We'll review the community feedback, survey results, break into these smaller groups. And so in the meantime, if any of you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. My email is here, elang@berkshireplanning.org. You should have all received an invite from me with my email as well. So yeah, thank you all so much for your time today. I think this was a really, really good first step. We really appreciate it. So I guess the meeting is officially over. I'm going to pass it over to Wendy for a minute to tell you about an exciting event this weekend that was already sort of mentioned.
Before that, Emily, maybe we can just take some time for questions for folks, because we are on time and it was a lot to digest. And I mean, a couple of just thoughts and kind of questions that came into my mind, because Emily has been a great handholder through all of this. But one is, as we think about breakouts and everything, it seems like there are some people who are specifically interested in community engagement. And, I wonder if we can just keep in mind where to build that into our process. Like, there's this initial community engagement part, right? But then there's like the implementation piece. How do we kind of build the culture? So that's one thing that's on my mind. And the other thing is, you've kind of led us through the process that leads up to developing the scope of work, but can you say something about like what that scope of work means and what happens after that? Because I'm still getting all this in my head, and then I'm sure other people have questions too.
Sure, yeah. So we've received funding from Green Communities to develop the scope of work, which they've been conceiving of it as a document that will be a really good outline for what a future plan could look like. So you can use it for as you look for future funding opportunities to fund a full planning process. This will be like a really good first step, a foundation, like a direction for what that plan could look like. And given the funds that we have, we will fill it in as much as we possibly can. But the things that we're going to concentrate on are the, meeting with this task force to get some initial ideas, and the community outreach, community engagement piece of it are going to be big focus here. And then sort of like reviewing some precedents, seeing what other towns are doing to draw from their strategies.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, could I just add to that a little bit? Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that one of the as we looked at the list of things that have already taken place in Williamstown, I didn't call out any specifically, but actually Bruce reminded me that we coincidentally have also just received an award to promote Mass Save, and Berkshire Regional Plan. Emily will be helping us with that as well, Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, and focusing on some very aggressive goals for having residents participate in beginning to adopt measures. So while we're focused in this group on putting together the scope and the plan, we will continue to act. So I think that it's going to be important that we don't just like, oh, we're not doing anything, we're waiting for a plan. But the whole reason this came about was as we were meeting as a cool committee to talk about what our next priorities would be, we realized it would be so helpful if we had a goal and a roadmap and a direction. That said, this is so urgent. We need to, keep working. And Chris Lemoyne has also been working with us on a recent project to kick off food waste collection here in Williamstown. We have a pilot going. And so we'll continue to look for opportunities that are on our doorstep right now. And then we'll feed those into the plan so that we have a, good process going forward. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Nancy. Bill, I saw your hand raised first.
Yes, I'm wondering if I mean we've got this whole group of people here now all charged up and we're all ready to go. And I'm sure that people are overflowing with ideas. Is there a way that I'm not asking or think that we should each write a great essay on this, but even just a set of bullet points of major things that we would like to focus on, and indicate which of those we as individuals would like to play a major role in. We'll all agree we'll not send out more than a single page or even a half a page if that's too much. Just to get those ideas that I'm sure are churning in everybody's head right now. Where would we send that kind of information?
That's a great idea. We could do it in a couple of ways. I could set up a Google Doc or like a Google spreadsheet so everyone can see what everyone else is contributing. Mm-hmm. Or you could send it directly to me and then I can compile it all into a document and share it out with everyone. So I don't know if there's a preference, but yeah, it might just be.
Set it up both ways because not everybody's comfortable using Google Docs, and sure. quite frankly, Google Docs are hard to edit and so forth. So, if you have both ways, I mean, then it puts a little burden on you to have to integrate them, but that's probably not
a big deal.
Good.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you,
Stephanie.
Hi, thanks. Emily, I guess I want to kind of build on both Nancy's and Bill's points that, we are continuing to do projects in Williamstown. A couple that I've been involved with recently are new streetlights, LED streetlights that will have a control system on them. So we will be able to reduce their power consumption even more at certain times of day. And that project started several years ago and was interrupted by a pandemic, but we hope to have those lights up and running by April of this year. So that's pretty exciting. And then another municipal project that's happening right now is the design of the new fire station. and they're just in the conceptual design right now. And I was so, I loved hearing Bruce's comments about working on, you know, non-fossil fuel heating systems for buildings. So I think what we really want to make sure is that when we're building new buildings into our community, that they start out as being net zero. And another issue that I sort of also thought of that we can all do is be ambassadors for this initiative. You know, a couple hundred people came to town meeting and voted on the net zero, and even those ones, I'm sure a lot of people have kind of forgotten. So when, you know, you're with people, like, tell them about this. And it's many people have also thought that it's just for the municipal buildings and infrastructure and equipment, but really we want all of us in the community to become net zero. And so I think just helping keeping those conversations going and talking to people about things that they can do big and small is really valuable. So I picked up some ideas today here that I need to follow up on more personally, and I'm sure you all have too. But thanks for getting all this going, Emily and Nancy and Wendy.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to build on that for a second of both of those, because I'm thinking that, and maybe what Wendy said too about community engagement, we've several people are interested in getting young people involved. And so I think that maybe if you can think of someone else who might join our task force who is directly connected to youth, you know, schools, youth, in some active way, I think that will be helpful. But I'm also thinking that in addition to the technologies and approaches we're talking about, it's the messaging, and sort of as Rita and Sue were saying, you know, how do we make sure that people know that we're solution-based, we're positive, we're looking to be practical and affordable and equitable, and it's as much as we're building on urgency, we're not building on doom and gloom. We're really trying to make this something that everybody wants to jump on. And when we start thinking about people for the task force, sort of everybody is touched in some way by this issue. So how do we be ambassadors for that? So your messages, good messages that you have, if you can add those to the list that Bill talked about, I think that would be helpful.
Anne has asked if that youth connection person would need to be a Williamstown resident, and we already have at least one person on here who's not, so I wouldn't think so. Just connected to youth in Williamstown.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Questions before we wind up?
Andy.
I actually have a question for Stephanie. When you were talking about the lights and changing them all to LED, I'm just learning. So if I'm asking a dumb question, I'll get an education on the backside, so it'll benefit. Especially along like Main Street. I know you've done stuff with LEDs, but have we looked into solar? Like, to me, I see Main Street being a great place to have like solar lights for the street lights, since we lost most of our elm trees, and it doesn't line with the trees like it did before. So, you know, there's high spots and great angles for the sun to be able to attach to that. Is there a reason why we actually didn't look into solar lighting for any of these higher sun absorbing areas?
It looks like Nancy is excited to answer that question.
Or Stephanie, you could, or Chris Lemoyne could, but we have actually a solar field here in Williamstown at our transfer station that supplies the electricity for all of our municipal operations, including the street lights. And so in terms of the source of the electricity, it's a solar field. In terms of like if you're thinking of intermittent lighting or power outages, that would speak to a different issue. But we have just about a 2 megawatt solar field here in Williamstown that powers our municipal operations and streetlights.
So I'm going to make that a little bit more complicated. We are at the moment or soon, hopefully trying to figure out how much solar energy is generated. So we don't know if it covers 100% yet of town's operations. It probably doesn't, but that's a very good question, Andy. One of the complications is that the town owns the arm with the light on it, but the pole is owned by National Grid. So there is some limitations to what we can do on the pole. So at the end of the day, they will be powered with solar electricity, but probably not on the pole. What the LEDs get you is a lighting that uses a lot less energy than the current lights that we have out there now. So then we need less solar to power them up. So not a dumb question, complicated system, and we're still working it out.
And it looks like Bruce has a thought on this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's important, I think, to remember that even though the idea of producing energy right on the site for the energy that you need on the site is a nice concept, and it is very visible, it's not always the most practical way to do things. And one of the things that, you know, that I've been really trying to promote awareness of is the fact that why we need to get off of fossil fuel burning in our buildings is because the grid itself is getting more efficient, even as people who aren't even in Williamstown are putting up solar arrays wherever they are. That makes the entire grid more efficient, and that's going to just improve over time. Lower emissions coming from the grid is a trend that is going to probably last for a long time. So getting efficiency in our buildings, efficiency in all of our end uses, and preparing for, you know, a solar energy supply, whether it's local or grid-based, are consistent with each other, and they don't sort of have to be tied together on an on-site basis. Of course, they can be, but you know, it's not necessary.
Another thing, Andy, is generating solar power on site. For example, a street light. One thing that comes into effect is our seasons. Streetlights are there for safety. We don't have enough solar power at the location. It simply won't work, which is why the current project for the LED streetlights is on the grid. The objective here is to reduce our consumption, and I'm very confident that it's going to work.
The other problem, of course, is that streetlights are on at night and the sun's not shining, so you have to have batteries, and that adds to the complication and expense. So the central, you know, doing it from a central array, I think, makes a lot more sense.
Now, adding
the
storage
grid actually makes a pretty good battery.
Yeah, right. Adding storage to that central array will be maybe a next step. So, yeah.
And that's an efficient way to do it.
As we're at the final minute, I wonder if we should close. Or Susan, did you have something really quick?
I just wanted to add that, you know, if we can succeed in getting those residential batteries, then we become a more distributed grid system like they have. It's more successfully been done in Vermont, where they have prevented major power outages because there are so many batteries. So I think the residential batteries are a really important component that we need to keep working on.
Yes, I'm confident that we will.
And along that line, National Grid has a program that battery owners can sign up, and it's actually quite beneficial to the homeowner to have that arrangement that during brownouts, National Grid can go in and help themselves to the electrons, but they compensate you very nicely for that, which eliminates the need for additional peak power plants around.
You know, it's beginning to make me think that, Emily, as we go forward, we're going to have sort of what you do on site at your home, what you do, you know, institution-wide, and then what you do community-wide to plug in. And so we'll, you know, one answer won't be the same for everything, but these are, wow, what a group we have. Wow, I'm more excited than ever. Thank
you all so much. And I did ask Emily if I could have the last word, if you don't mind sharing that slide. I just want to put in a plug for Saturday's forum, which Lauren was a champion for this event. called Glasgow on the Hoosic, where we will be learning about national, international, and local actions related to the climate crisis after COP26. So I'm thrilled to be included in that. I will certainly be mentioning this work that we're all doing together, and I will send out the Zoom link or ask Emily to before Saturday so that you all have this. So on Zoom at 10 a.m. And hope to see some of you there. And thank you so much. Other last words, Emily and Nancy?
No, just thank you.
Yeah.
Thrilled.
Yeah, thank you all.
Part of it.
Great.
See you soon. Thank
All right.
you.
Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you
Bye,
all.
everybody. Thank you.
Any